Hi! Bit of a weird one today. Not the person you're used to. I'm Luke. You've seen me before. This is Nick.
Hi, I've been here before too.
You've seen him before. We're here because we've been talking to Emily and the Myriad, and they would like us to talk about the ways that the altars are noticeable by else. Obviously, that's something they can't really talk about themselves, because you can't observe yourself. So
That's what our job is. People who live with her, so we kind of have a different perspective of what it's like when different altars are out.
and it's important, at least I think it is to us, to be able to know who's around, to avoid any of the sort of slightly more awkward mishaps and misnaming, or someone doesn't feel like they are themselves enough, which Emily has discussed along with the others much before. One of the first things that I always see is a difference in the way that each altar looks at you or at people. There's a lot to be said about the eyes on a person, and while way back before all this, before I knew anything about DID and knew anything much about Emily's altars and the way they all went, I've always loved trying to pick up on what people are like from the way they look at people and from their eyes, and I think that it's just, you can see a different kind of look. I mean, Nick have very different eyes already, and if we're both staring at the camera, we're both staring at the camera in a different way. But that's not all. It comes with a whole range of feelings and like a vibe almost.
Definitely a vibe. Vibe's a big one. Like when like Lucy's out, there's a definite different aura than when, say, Em or if Pepper's around or something like that.
Definitely. It is, really interesting how much of that feeling a different person is in the room, so the atmosphere is different and everyone can relate to that. The way I've also talked about it with Emily is like an aura. Not everyone believes in this kind of thing, not everyone thinks this kind of thing, and that's fine, but I do think there is some merit to it, that every person has like a energy they emanate, and you can feel a difference with many of the altars, if not all of them.
I'd say one of the more standout things for me, especially I'm around Pepper a lot, so I tend to notice more subtle things with her. So a lot of times I can see like smile, and even in some ways she has like inflections on certain words. So the way she says like her Y is always a bit more like smiley, like a bit more of an E on the end of it.
Is it really?
It's a very small thing, but yeah, it's something that she does.
Time.
And same with a lot of the other altars. Smile is one that stands out to me a lot. A lot of them will be like a more childish or excitable smile, or some will have a bit more of a matureness to them.
It's something I've not picked up on as much, but talking to Nick about it, I'm trying to keep an eye out as part of the thing. It's very interesting because, like I say, everyone's different. Everyone has different kind of smiles. It's almost a learned thing, but it's also unconscious.
It just shows a lot of personality in like a lot of the subtle things you wouldn't really think about.
You were saying that Pepper says her Y's in a different way, sort of a different inflection. Did you also say that some of them use different words in a scenario? So like,
oh god, I'm trying to think of some examples, but yes, in a lot of situations, well, I know if Peter was around, he would be very childish in a sense. He'd be trying to think of
the most direct word to the solution.
There is no beating around the bush with Peter. It's just straight to the point.
Yeah, and that's interesting. That's something you can tell straight away. If there's been a switch that wasn't planned, which happens sometimes, that's handy. But even if it is planned and maybe someone walks into the room and they don't know that this has happened, it's quite, again, quick if someone is talking in a very different way, like Peter does.
I think a favourite memory was you were on the phone. You phoned up Em at the time, but Pepper was out.
Right.
I was like, I can tell this isn't my wife. It was such a funny situation.
I can tell this isn't my wife. Yeah, I do remember that. In that same way of the instant recognition, I am in and out of the house a lot. Work is really weird timings for me. So if I enter, and the Myriad and Nick are hanging out. There's a lot of different ways that they like to greet me and people. So I know Emily's going to usually hop up and hug me, or give me like a nice smile and say something, you know, all sorts of whatever. But other alters, you could get anything. Some of the more childish ones, like Peter and Ash, they could quite easily be, well, completely different. I mean, Pete's like all the way up there on the energy scale, a big wave. He might like show me what he's doing immediately. That kind of just different energy will really show it off to me. And then other people, more quiet and reserved alters like Lucy, would probably give a much more reserved reaction. And again, it's all part of the instant recognition. Like, oh, got you. And it's just that quick little thought process. It's very, very interesting. So another part that's very quick and easy is that, fortunately for us, we have the time and space to help our alters feel very comfortable with clothes and outfits and styles that they've grown to love over the years and figure out for themselves.
Makes Christmas very easy. Just to get them something stylized.
Oh yeah, and it's good and fun. And for the most part, you don't have to like go all out and break the bank. It's just like, you know, a top that's in a different style or whatever. Nice socks with bunnies on them. What is great fun. So that's also good. You can not to say that Emily, who is usually the main, doesn't wear different styles. She does, but there are some things that are very, very clear that will at least make me second guess and check for the other signs. And then I can go, right, I'm 90% sure this is Felix who's out instead, and I will greet him as such and hope. But it's not really a problem if it goes wrong. Have you had any weird moments where you greet someone by the wrong name because you've misread the situation? Has that ever been awkward?
It feels awkward at the moment, but it quickly is like, oh, it's not the end of the world. It's not really too big of an issue. It happens.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can read things wrong. Maybe like you've been burnt out at work or something like that. So you're reading things wrong because you're exhausted.
I'd say it's pretty much the same. I think back, years back, when things were more unknown, there was no idea what DID was really. There was no diagnoses or things like that. Sometimes that would make for slightly more awkward situations if people were misidentified. And you know, when you're young, these things happen.
We have, if there's some alters that maybe me or Luke are around less often. So I know I've seen Felix like maybe once in the past year, and you've probably seen him quite a few more times.
Yeah.
So if Felix was around, I probably wouldn't be able to tell his signs as well. Especially with a new person, so someone who's never around or someone who's not even around at all yet because they've not been, well, they haven't shown their face yet. We'll have no way of telling the signs, but we'll usually be able to feel is something's a bit different. Usually. Whether it's subtle, whether it's like, this is quite a distinct change, so a very distinct sign for Ashy is she's mute, so...
yeah, she prefers to not talk at all if she can really help it, and I mean, I think that the way the system works is that Ren is also awake while she's around and sort of acts to protect her and help move things along, because she is very, you know, she's very young and has this specific, you know, speech feature, and so it's important that she's looked after and
definitely
taken care of. But I do want to say that with all of this, these are not just their full personalities. These things don't define each alter. You can't just say that, oh, well, they're wearing gothic clothes, therefore that is all Lucy is. It's not like that.
No.
It's just something that helps us identify it straight away, and something that the alters tend to do when they're first out to help them sort of get a feel for it. Emily said a really interesting phrase, which was like, they sort of make the space in the head, because if Emily has been out all day, she does like the dog walk, and then she does something that's like adult life stuff, or she's talking to her parents or whatever, that's like all there. And when there's a switch, so she said, trying to make your own space in that muck is difficult and takes time. So if someone is quite strongly falling into their stereotypes to start with, that's not necessarily because that's just what they are. It's just a way of helping ground themselves. I mean, when Pepper is dragged out kicking and screaming by seeing you or whatever it is that does it, she's often super hyped for like the first 10 minutes. And maybe that's just because she's excited, but also it helps her feel grounded in herself because she is energetic and bubbly and fun, and
it's like setting the mold for who's going to be out straight away immediately, basically.
Yeah. So we thought we might quickly just run through a few specifics for each altar. Again, the things that we would notice that might give us a clue as to who's out. And maybe if another video comes out and they don't immediately introduce themselves by name, you all might be able to tell. I'll start with Ash. Quite obviously, she's non-verbal. We are both trying to pick up on BSL, just as she and Em are, as fast as possible. That's British Sign Language, to make it easier to communicate, because writing is annoying and awkward, and she feels young, and that might not be something she would be capable of. But it's complicated because of the shared experiences.
Yeah.
She's very shy. Typically, when she first comes out, she's typically quite withdrawn and quiet. But we also find that an altar is quite often pulled out by an external experience. So we might see all of a sudden the myriad might just stop and crouch down and look at like a snail or a slug or a little beetle or something. And if that happens, we're a little bit sure that that's probably a trigger for Ash to come out and say hello. That's the thing that happens.
Sometimes that can literally last, like, Ash will come out for like a couple of minutes just from seeing like a bug.
And
then we carry on, switches back to where we was before. A big signs with Pep is it immediately seems like they've had like a ton of sugar. They're completely hyper. That is like the main baseline for them. They do settle down if they're like doing things, but there's always this excited energy behind their just usual personality. Naturally, me being her partner tends to be quite a trigger for her, so if I'm around or if there's certain songs that associate with us two, that will draw her forward as well. What else kind of brings her forward? I know a lot of her plushes she has is another trigger. So if like she's feeling a bit sad and if she has Honey or something, and Honey's one of her Build-A-Bear teddies, that tends to be a bit of a draw for her as well.
I'll talk about Ren. Ren is a fantastic friend to everyone, but the way we typically tell that they're out is, I don't know if it's unconscious or driven, but their voice, the slight sort of Cockney accent is very distinct, and I mean I like it, but I think it's super interesting. But they're typically more decisive than Em, so if there's been a switch, like out of the blue, if the Miri starts making decisions a little bit more than you might expect, I personally associate with that with Ren making his mold straight away. He can be a little bit more flippant, like things just wash over them, he doesn't mind about things so much, he doesn't get caught up in the minutiae of stuff, but he's also very caring. He comes out to discuss deep topics and care for people, like in a snap decision, and that's happened multiple times. Like if any of us, especially me and Nick, was having like a problem, we're like, oh, work is such a problem, oh, this, that, and the other. Sometimes Ren will be there to just chat it out as like a sibling energy, and again, these things recede as they go through their day, but right there and then it starts off really strong and it's amazing.
Right, on to Lucy. She is one with a very distinct style. So she goes quite heavily into Gothic. So pretty much everything she's wearing is quite dark. And obviously a Gothic style. She has a lot more of a mature kind of feel to her compared to Em. So Em acts like a bit of a kid at times, but not the same as like Ashy, who's like, or Peter, who's like full kid. It's like slightly childish.
Yeah.
But with Lucy, there is a bit of maturity. Kind of acts kind of the age she should be, I guess, so like around 26-ish. She's a lot more calm as well, so not as excitable and bubbly. Something you described was long looks.
Like, this goes into like the greetings thing as well. We make a lot of jokes in this household. There's banter, there's memes. It's stupid, like 80% of the time. If Lucy's about, and I stride into the room making a stupid joke that's like happened last night or something, instead of a laugh or whatever, I might just get 1,000-yard stare just for slightly uncomfortable number of seconds, and I'm like, and then she'll laugh, or then she'll smile, or whatever. But she just holds that just long enough to make you think, oh, I know who you are.
She's definitely someone who's also quite protective of a lot of people in the system.
Definitely.
So if there's like a bad thing that's happened or something in the system, she's also, similar to Ren, someone who will try to kind of help take the load from it. So say if there's a lot of depression going on, Lucy and herself definitely takes that on pretty well, I'd say.
And like with Ren, just pops out to deal with it for maybe even just a few minutes. But she's one of the oldest alters and is very good at the quick switch, as well as just appearing to deal with it. Peter is a little whirlwind of excitement and activity. Like I said before, I typically come into the house a lot when a switch may have already happened, and Peter being out is quite easy to recognise because of his energy and his excitement about the thing that he's currently doing. He kind of focuses in like a laser beam right onto what he's doing. And so, say for example he's drawing, which is something he likes to do and good fun. I might come home from work, say hello to everyone, and the first thing that happen is I get like a piece of paper held up.
It's a drawing.
It's a drawing. And you like, okay, there's not many who immediately do that. And if he's feeling very like digging out his own mold, then that's like the kind of energy he is. He's proud of himself, which is great, and he's very focused on what he's doing. And as well as being just a little bit selfish in that kind of childish way. Selfish is such a harsh word, but like, who wouldn't be when you're just doing something you like and being yourself? And anyway, and very playful as well. So again, if Peter happens to come out and is trying to make that known, it's like he wants to come play with someone and do something now. And then that, like with everyone, it settles down usually, and it's helpful to tell exactly who it is.
With Autumn, she's definitely the most mature in the system, so she is almost quite motherly in a sense. She's incredibly tidy. If she's out and she notices mess, she's like fidgety until she can actually tidy it up. So say if like someone's left like a few bowls in the living room or something like that, that's pretty much the first thing she's going to deal with. Just tiny little things, but she's very much like a busybody. It's not often she'll just sit and do nothing, and she feels a lot of time when she's out, she's taking up someone else's time.
Yeah, she says that a lot.
It's silly. She deserves time too. She's just very caring, and like I say, motherly.
Felix, as Nick was talking about earlier, doesn't see him too often. He's very, very shy, and when he comes out to surprise me sometimes, which is really nice. So usually of a morning, we might be planning to go out and do something, and I will look around, and the things that I see immediately to like get me to understand that Felix is like, he slows everything right down. He gets nice and quiet. He's a little bit shy, a little bit more sort of cautious about things. Emily's quite blasé about like most everything. You know, often, but he's sort of quiet and thoughtful. He won't say this, he doesn't believe it, but I notice a difference in his voice, just a whole different like resonance in the whole thing. I can't really explain it in things that words, but the vibe is that so different straight away. He also likes to put on like a very specific set of outfits that are just unequivocally his, which is also very nice. And so even if he's not said anything, I can take one look in and be like, nice to see you again. Yeah, great guy. And Charlie's
a hard one.
Charlie is an alter we both don't see too often. She comes out during usually moments of extreme head fuzz or perhaps stress.
Even sometimes just when M's by herself for too long is another thing that sometimes pops Charlie out.
I think she's done like more dog walks on her own than any of the other
I
ones.
think so, yeah.
Because she just, if Emma's alone, and she doesn't do too well on her own, bless them. But the system copes, and Charlie is that one who's just fiercely independent. If I was to describe the first thing you notice about her, would you agree that it's I don't give a fuck energy?
Yes, that's a good description.
She's also got style. She's like, doesn't really care what people think of her. She just wears whatever.
It's slightly
does,
punky.
Like, yeah, like experimental makeup and just does and just like, you know. And because those sorts of things happen, so like the dressing, makeup and stuff happens usually at the start when she's just come out, that becomes like a very strong thing because again it's making the mold, so she wants to feel like her, so she'll change, you know, how the face looks to a degree with makeup. She'll change her hair and pull it up to the side or something like that and do something really cool but really different. She also has a distinct voice, which is just like, again, this kind of, there's less, it's not like flat and monotone, it's more like,
it's, how to describe it? She can kind of come off sort of as standoffish, but
yeah, that's the one.
I think that's the best way to describe it. Not in an
very
unpleasant way, just like,
yeah, it's not like a nasty person.
No,
just cool,
very
comfortable in herself,
yeah,
and doesn't really care. Fair enough. Nice,
easy way to put it.
Nice way of looking at it. That's everyone we like fully know of. There's loads of ways. Oh wait, for Emily.
Yeah, we haven't described M. We know where
She
M's
is. Emily shoulders most of the problems that the system has. She kind of does that. So if it's been a bad day, she's feeling particularly sad or maybe even anxious about things, and there's a lot of things that can do that, and also a lot of things that can't. Not to say, this is horrible. The first thing I see about my wife is that she's depressed. No. She is a blend of, like, she's quite thoughtful and sensitive. She's a super empath. And so if I walk into the room and I've had a bad day, or if Nick walks into the room and he's had a bad day, and Emily's out, she kind of feels that energy immediately, and it, like, latches onto her, and then she'll feel it as well very quickly. Yes. Or and the same with happy moods too. So like, we both come back and we're both peppy, or we both come back and we're motivated to get things done. That's the stuff. Emily loves like immersing ourselves in the things that we all enjoy as a group. So she might start off by talking about, like, immediately start by talking about a video game or a story that we've been discussing. She might talk about some things she learned today, because even if she's feeling bad, her preferred way of spending that time is to go out and learn things. So whether that's on YouTube or TikTok, or if it's on articles and like books and stuff, she absorbs the things and then wants to share that so much. And as soon as someone appears, which is it
just explodes out.
Yeah, straight away. That's definitely the easiest way to tell that it's Emily. But I mean, for me, she'll come over and she'll be affectionate, and for Nick, she'll kind of be like sisterly, because we're just all so close and chill in here. But there is a difference. So like, even if Emily goes to hug Nick, it's different from how Pepper goes to hug Nick.
Yeah.
And if Pepper goes to hug me, it's different from how Emily would hug me, and vice versa. So the problem with this video, right at the end, I'm finding, is that most of it comes down to personal interpretation of what someone appears as. But that's our interpretation.
Yeah.
So, thanks. What's the thing she does? Fingers?
Yes, fingers. I'm not doing that.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.